Fantastic run here at the Players' Championship, making a name for themselves this weekend on the Open Series circuit, and we'll see which one moves on to our semifinals.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say enough about Caleb's run. Looking like he wouldn't make the Players' Championship just a week ago, and now he finds himself as the favorite, to win a quarterfinal match.
It's been an impressive handful of weeks here for Caleb, getting his name back into the race at our Open Series New Jersey with his runner-up finish there with Storm, winning our Season 4 Invitational to get here and making the most of it as he's our number 2 overall seed. Players will wish each other good luck, and we are underway here. It's a flooded strand here for Caleb, and we'll see how Kevin wants to start things off.
Yeah, so if you didn't get a chance to watch the Kevin Jones-Jacob Wilson match, Kevin had tried the Jeskai man for all of the year, had gone to the best Jeskai black deck in the format. That's, Jeskai Black, the control build. And really, once it turned into more of a control deck, it just wasn't a Kevin Jones deck anymore. And he really has changed it, I think, to make it look like a Kevin Jones deck. There's no Soulfires in here. It's back to 4 Seekers. It's back to multiple Jeskai charms. It has Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker in it. This is what I expect out of Kevin Jones.
He likes to attack. He always has. He'll sacrifice a couple of fetch lands here. I think we'll have a Seeker of the Way. I expect a Plains and a Mountain from these fetch lands. And as we've mentioned, he likes to attack. He likes Seeker of the Way. He likes Mantis Shredder. He likes to kind of play this tempo game that does involve attacking. Though his deck is probably a little bit softer to Siege Rhino than he would like. He's not playing copies of Crackling Doom like Jeskai Black decks do.
Yeah, he has 2 copies of Valorous Stance that can get rid, and 2 copies of Roast in the main deck, and those will all take care of Siege Rhino. But you're right. Historically, if you go back to last season's Jeskai decks, the ones that Kevin loved, Jeskai had a tough Obzon matchup, and that was just because of the card Siege Rhino. So I guess if you want to have a, kind of a retro analysis of this matchup, that, yeah, Siege Rhino is going to be good once again.
Caleb's going to sacrifice 3 fetch lands. His mana is online. We could have an Anafenza on the way here in just a moment.
And that's going to be good. Now, Seeker of the Way has a card that's really fallen out of favor. Still does actually do work in this matchup because of some of the smaller creatures that Caleb has. Now, with the draw Caleb has produced right now, where he's not playing until turn 3, but we're going to see Anafenza into Siege Rhino, we're going to go back to the spot where maybe Seeker doesn't carry its weight.
Mystic Monastery is land number 3. Here's Seeker number 2. We'll head back Caleb's way. He'll untap and take a draw. Picked up a copy of Murderous Cut. 3 cards already in the graveyard. Looks like Anafenza is going to come across into the red zone. Jones, no blocks to be had. He'll fall down to 14. Caleb will sacrifice another fetch land, fall down to 16. Yeah. And I think we'll have a Rhino.
We know it's on the way.
Yeah.
When they make their 4th land drop that quickly, there's no questioning what's about to happen.
There's land number 4 is a Canopy Vista.
And yeah, it has been these Anafenza into Rhino draws that have been difficult for Jeskai in the past. We'll see if Kevin Jones has the tools that are needed here. Now, Double Seeker won't give him board control, but it'll give him a lot of control over life points.
We're going to head back over to Kevin. He's already down to 11. 11 and 19. Valorous Stance is a timely draw step. That's a big one.
That is big. I mean, he was in a position where it's looking like he was going to have to Jeskai Charm the Siege Rhino, which is okay, but not great. I mean, that Valorous Stance draw, boy, that'll do some work.
That'll clear out the Rhino. That'll trigger Prowess. That means these things are lifelinkers. They're coming across into the red zone. We'll see a 6-point life swing here. Scherer going to fall down to 13. Jones going to go back up. And keep in mind, Kevin does have a copy of Dispel in hand at this point. That might play a role in things as we head back Caleb's way.
Well, it's actually pretty helpful. I believe Caleb's line here was to make another Siege Rhino and then Murderous Cut something. So that Dispel will really catch Caleb off guard. There's pressure on Caleb to use the Murderous Cut on his own turn. If he waits until Kevin's turn, he could get hit by Murderous Cut.
Well, there is no land here for Caleb. Just a Rhino. He'll pass the turn back. So we're going to head back Kevin Jones's way, as we've just been informed very quickly that Todd Anderson is up a game already over Logan Mize. So Jeskai Black up a game already over Obzon Aggro.
Yeah, can Lightning Strike twice? I was going to say, can Kevin top deck the other Valorous Stance? The answer's no.
He does have a Flooded Strand as land number 5 here. You see he's got Jeskai Charm, Fiery Impulse, the Dispel that you mentioned, and a copy of Treasure Cruise.
Siege Rhino is so big. It's just, you look at this and you say, okay, well, he could play one, Cruise, that's 1 pump, Fiery Impulse, like, man, and I mean, what he could do is if he had enough mana, he could Treasure Cruise, and then if Caleb blocked with Siege Rhino, he could use Jeskai Charm to pump, and then the Seekers would finally be big enough, but even now, that's not possible.
Well, here come the Seekers.
I mean, it looks like he's willing to trade Fiery Impulse and a Seeker for this Rhino. Which is something he may just have to do.
Yeah, I think so.
And Caleb has to block. I know Caleb will assume his Rhino's dying somehow, but no blocks against Double Seeker. You can't actually race that.
Kevin's going to sacrifice his Flooded Strand. Fall down to 9 here. His life total is going up and down and all around. Prairie Stream, the weapon of choice. He gets the end of the battlefield untapped because of the mountain and the plains. And we'll see what kind of line Kevin wants to take here. Again, Fiery Impulse and Jeskai Charm in hand.
And even so, no clean answer to Siege Rhino.
Looks like he's going to go Jeskai Charm, put that on top of the deck.
All right, so he can put Anafenza on top.
That will be Caleb's draw next turn. Now here's a Fiery Impulse. And so what this is going to do is, yes, the Fiery Impulse and the Seeker are going to trade. Then the Seeker will come through for a healthy amount of damage.
Yeah, some interesting things. Kevin, actually, if he wanted here, could trade a Dispel for the Rhino. Instead, he could Dispel his own Fiery Impulse, and he'd just have some 5/5 Seekers.
Actually, this isn't bad because his graveyard's full now, too.
Yeah, Treasure Cruise. He's going to restock. Now, if we get into a late game pound-for-pound war, Obzon is favored.
I don't think that's... I mean, that's clearly not a place Kevin wants to go, but I think he's done a pretty good job here. I mean, Anafenza isn't a card that, if I'm Caleb, I'm thrilled to be drawing because I've only got one black source of mana.
I wanted the land.
Yeah.
He can't even Anafenza and cut. This is a fine spot for Kevin. He's up on life points. He's up on lands. He's not horribly behind on cards. But remember, Caleb's cards tend to sometimes do count for more than one. Siege Rhino usually is worth 2.
Yeah, the question here now is how was Kevin's draws with the Treasure Cruise? We'll find out soon enough when we get a better look at his hand, but we look at Caleb's here. He's got that cut, he's got a Warden, he's got another Rhino, and then Anafenza was his draw step, of course. So his hand is pretty loaded up, but as oftentimes is the case with this type of deck, it is difficult to play multiple spells in one turn, so we'll see which route Caleb does want to go.
If Kevin can beat a triple Siege Rhino draw out of Obzon aggro, then I think as a metagame, players have just missed this deck.
So he's going to go with Murderous Cut, take care of the Seeker, play the Warden, level it right away, and pass the turn back.
Yeah, remember, because of that Treasure Cruise, Fiery Impulse style cards back to not being spell masteried.
Land number 6 is a Windswept Heath here for Kevin.
And Kevin plays another Seeker. He has a Gideon, a Roast, and a Dispel.
I like his hand.
Seems strong. Caleb not prepared to answer Gideon right now.
Yeah.
Now, what I am interested in seeing doing is how Kevin prioritizes the Roast in his hand. Yes, it's a clean answer to the Warden. Yes, he could play Gideon plus Roast and have a good turn, but he's got to know. I mean, Caleb drew Anafenza. Caleb could have another Rhino. There are so many things he needs to roast in this matchup. I don't know if he's willing to spend it on a Warden.
Yeah, what is interesting is, does he want to spend a Roast on this Warden or not? Because if I'm Kevin in this spot, I'm saying, okay, I've dealt with 2 Rhinos. Mathematically, the chance of you having the 3rd Rhino pretty low. Now, I do know you have an Anafenza, and that's a pretty big body, so perhaps I will save the Roast for that. But we know that Caleb does have another copy of Siege Rhino in hand, so we'll see what happens with Kevin and how he wants to use this Roast.
Yeah, I think he wants to hold it because he does have another good play. He has Seeker of the Way in his hand, and it may just be better to make that here. So Warden's not going to kill Gideon. You could double block Warden. You could take 3 off Warden.
He's going to Roast.
He's going to go the other way with it.
I'm slightly surprised.
Yeah, me as well.
There's Siege Rhino number 3. That'll trigger. Caleb going to go up to 15. Kevin down to 13.
It is a tough spot here because now Kevin really doesn't have an answer to this Rhino.
And Kevin going to untap here. Take a draw. Seeker, Dispel. Looks like Gideon's going to go up. He'll attack with that 5/5. Caleb's going to fall down to 10. The follow-up is a Seeker, and now Kevin will just pass the turn back, so we go back over to Caleb now.
Believe he picked up another land.
You did mention that Caleb not particularly well equipped to deal with Gideon right now.
That's true. He can attack it down, though, with Siege Rhino.
Yep. Siege Rhino might have to engage in a bit of a sub-game here. Now, you do see Caleb's hand. He's got an Obzon Charm, a Dromoka's Command, and an Anafenza. Those are the 3 cards left for Kevin. It looks to be a Dispel and a land.
Well, the danger is that, I mean, Gideon's at 5, so if Caleb's attacking Gideon, he would have to use either the Obzon Charm or the Dromoka's Command to actually make it a lethal attack.
Caleb's going to sacrifice this Flooded Strand.
I guess ideally what he'd want to do is use the Rhino to fight down a creature, then attack Gideon and just sweep everything up. He has just enough mana to make this work, too. He can cast both the Abzan Charm. Actually, he cannot.
Yeah, his mana is lined up in a weird way.
He can't because he has two dual lands that only make black and don't make green or white. He actually cannot cast both Abzan Charm and Dromoka's Command.
Yeah.
And I think he's figuring that out right now. If he could cast both of them, he would have a great turn here.
And now he's just in one spell per turn territory here. So this is a real issue.
Well, here's what's great. So what Caleb, I think, is determined he wants to do is sit back and use the Abzan Charm to kill Gideon. But this main deck Dispel off Kevin is going to catch Caleb unaware and do some serious damage.
And I think Kevin may have just drawn a copy of Mantis Rider, his go-to card.
Wow.
And Kevin taking a look, okay, what can you do with your mana? What spells can you cast? Because Caleb's mana is messed up a little bit here.
Kevin's figured it out, too. Look at that. You see how Kevin grouped those two black lands on the side? Kevin knows. Caleb's got one spell here.
Mantis Rider going to come down. Gideon going to grow up.
And I just can't tell you how happy I am to see Kevin playing these strategies again. You look at how fast he's making the decisions and how he just realizes what matters here. This is Kevin Jones playing his best Magic.
Abzan Charm going to be countered by Dispel.
This is the blowout.
And that is going to do it. Kevin Jones is going to win game number 1 here over Caleb Scherer. Able to get through 3 Rhinos that game as a Jeskai aggro player up a game over Abzan aggro. And it looks like Caleb may have just searched up the wrong land there with that Flooded Strand.
You see it on his face. And, you know, that was the Achilles heel of Abzan aggro last season was its mana. And you kind of look at it again there. If Caleb had one more source of green or white, that turn would have been so different. He would have used Dromoka's Command and Abzan Charm to kill one of Kevin's creatures. He would have killed the Gideon. This would have been a coasting victory for Caleb Scherer.
And he does have a second Canopy Vista in his deck list. He just searched up the wrong land, searching up that Sunken Hollow in that situation. It came back to bite him. So, again, Kevin Jones up a game here over Caleb Scherer. We'll take a look at the sideboards here from both players, see what they're working with. On Caleb's side, again, his deck list is going to look very familiar given his win in Las Vegas. 4 Pitiless Horde, a Gideon ally of Zendikar, 2 Duress, 2 Painful Truths, 3 Planar Outburst, and 3 copies of Self-Inflicted Wound. What do we like here?
Well, we saw this last time. The one thing that he's done with his sideboard since the Invitational is he was playing a lot of copies of Rising Miasma at the Invitational and said the card was horrible. So he did is he got rid of the Rising Miasmas and just upped the counts on everything else. So it's not a Pitiless Horde matchup, but I think what Caleb can do here is he can, if he wants to adopt more of a control role, because Kevin's actually an aggro deck, remember, he can go towards something like Painful Truths. And actually, Self-Inflicted Wound is not terrible here. It hits, once you're playing in Seekers and Mantis Riders, it's a pretty reasonable removal spell.
On the other side of things here for Kevin, 2 Rash and Claire, 2 Den Protector, 2 Outpost Siege, 3 Disdainful Stroke, a Dispel, a Dromoka's Command on the splash, 2 Radiant Flames, and 2 copies of Roast.
Boy, is Kevin ready for this matchup when you look at his sideboard. We saw how great Roast was there. Post-board, Kevin will have a full play set of them after those 2 are added. On top of that, he survived 3 Siege Rhinos that game, and that was very impressive. Now, I wouldn't want to tempt fate twice in Kevin Jones' situation. I'm going to board in those 3 Disdainful Strokes and just make sure that Siege Rhino doesn't beat me up. Den Protector also, that's a slight green splash to Kevin's board. Didn't totally expect to see that, but given that it's in his deck, I'd be game for doing that as well.
I like the free roll green splash that he has access to with Den Protector and Dromoka's Command. We haven't really seen a deck like Kevin's before. This tournament, really, you know, like Jeskai aggro kind of fell off the map. You had Todd Anderson innovate Jeskai Black along with John Finkel and Owen Turtenwald at Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar. That really kind of put that splash of Ochai's Command and Kolagon's Command together in one deck. And now all of a sudden you've got Kevin, who's basically just 3 colors, but a small splash of green on the sideboard. I kind of like it.
Yeah, the biggest difference you can say is whereas the Todds, the Finkels, the Brads, they're all playing Soulfire Grandmaster as their 2-drop. Kevin Jones' 2-drop of choice is Seeker of the Way, and I think all the differences between the decks kind of sprout out from that decision.
Those are the options there for both players. Caleb will be on the play here for game number 2, and we will turn our attention to Caleb a little bit here as he is our Season 4 Invitational Champion, which means, of course, you get $10,000, you get invited to the Players' Championship, and you also get your likeness on a card, and he's got his likeness here on a Storm counter.
Yeah, I mean, love that we finally have a Storm counter. We've had an Infect one for about 2 years now. Every time I see it, I'm thinking, man, we could certainly use a Storm one. Well, Caleb's the first person to do it here, taking down his Invitational last week.
A couple of ways to go about getting this one. All open participants, all classic participants, and in all orders from StarCityGames.com, beginning January 29th at noon East Coast time. $5 minimum order on that. Again, all opens, all classics, and all orders from StarCityGames.com beginning January 29th. January 29th is the open that does take place in Columbus, Ohio during Season 1 of the SCG Tour. Caleb Scherer, our Season 4 Invitational Champion, and we're watching him play right now in the quarterfinals of the Star City Games Players Championship. Down a game right now, however, to Kevin Jones.
So you mentioned before, Kevin Jones, a 2-0 win over Jacob Wilson earlier this morning.
It's been a good start.
Yeah, defeating Rudy Brixa last round last night.
And Kevin, talking to him on my round off previously, he's just like, this tournament has just been kind of up and down. I was 2-0 in Legacy, feeling really good. Lost a really close match to Brad. Then I lost again. Then Modern wasn't going well. And then all of a sudden, I've got my back against the wall in an elimination round. What's going on there? But he's able to overcome Rudy. And now every round is elimination round because we're in single elimination for day number 2. He beats Jacob Wilson, one of the best players in the tournament, one of the players who, of course, went very high off the boards for people that they thought were going to win the tournament. He's eliminated. And now Kevin's up a game against Caleb, maybe the hottest player coming into the tournament.
I mean, one of the things I've loved about the elimination matches today is you get a room full of some of the best players in the Open Series, and you hope that the games are decided by these details, by those small decisions that can separate players. And we've not been disappointed. We've looked at some of these matches where, I'm looking at the Joe Lissette Logan Mize match. You look at the Alex Bostecki Danny Jessup match. There have been just, one player playing slightly better, getting a slight edge. I think Kevin Jones getting Rudy Brixa yesterday evening in that elimination match. He played the better game, and right there you saw Caleb, one missed fetch land. It cost him the game, and Kevin Jones is up 1-0 because of it.
Yeah, these mistakes are really coming back to bite people, and of course, in Magic, it is a game of one mistake here, one mistake there, and it can cost you an entire game and or match, and we just saw that take place in that particular game, and I think Caleb, as soon as he fetched his land, presented his deck, and then kind of organized his turn, he realized, I just searched for the wrong land. I really hope Kevin doesn't notice this. And then Kevin immediately went over his lands and said, you can only play one spell per turn. If you're passing, it's probably an instant. I can counter that and kill you this turn.
Yeah, I mean, a great play. And when you play on an Open Series event, a lot of times, week in, week out, players will make mistakes, they'll make slight oversights, but they still do well because of it. Where this tournament is so unique is you just don't get away with those sorts of things anymore.
Yeah, not this weekend. Got to keep mistakes to a minimum, make less of them than your opponent. Obviously, Magic, a very difficult and complicated game, especially in this standard format where fetching for battle lands and all of that stuff is obviously quite difficult. You're looking at sideboards that are pretty unique here. And for Kevin, what makes his deck so interesting, at least to me, is that again, if you're playing Jeskai Black, Caleb's probably played against that deck a bunch. He's probably got a plan against that deck that involves Pitiless Horde and a bunch of other things. For this particular match, he's sideboarding up and down and all around. He's going back to the drawing board again right now. It's unclear if he knows what he wants to do against Kevin's deck that has Mantis Rider, Hangerback Walker, Seeker of the Way, Jeskai Charms, a bunch of cards we haven't seen for a little while.
Yeah, Pitiless Horde was the plan, but when you look at how that game played out, I don't know that I want, Caleb felt like he was the control deck there.
This is not a matchup that Caleb can Pitiless Horde in. It's not that kind of matchup. If it's Jeskai Black, no Mantis Riders like what Todd's playing on our backup match, yeah, by all means bring in the Pitiless Hordes and just try to grind them down that way. But for this matchup, it's Jeskai aggro, not Jeskai Black.
Right, and I think it puts some of Caleb's cards in an awkward position. So when you look at the old season of matches, you between these decks, Obzon would get big, it would get controlling this matchup, Jeskai would try to win. That's how it would work. But now you look at Caleb's positioning. Okay, he has 4 Snapping Gnarlids in the main deck. He has Pitiless Hordes in the sideboard. These aren't the right cards to go control, and Kevin has caught him off balance.
And our backup match, those players are already going to game number 3, Todd Anderson and Logan Mize. That's Anderson on Jeskai Black, of course, Mize, of course, on Obzon Aggro. No surprises in what decks those two players are playing, though they are playing relatively quickly. You take a look at the time in the round. Those guys are moving and grooving over there.
No surprise for Todd Anderson. That we actually... One thing, Todd Anderson, some of the most matches played on the Open Series this year, almost 400 of them, 0 draws.
Yep.
That's Todd.
Doesn't mess around. Trying to get done. Both players going to take a look at their opening hands here. Again, Caleb Scherer will be on the play. See if he finds a hand that he likes.
And you see him caught off balance. Caleb still has copies of Duress in here. And, it's... Some questions, right? Okay, Jeskai Black, I definitely want Duress. Then you have to think, Kevin Jones, do you want Duress? Yes, with a question mark, right?
Yes, sort of.
Sort of. Dispel was good against him that game, so Duress would be nice. But then Kevin could just have a bunch of Mantis Riders and Seekers, and then it's less good.
Here's one of the first way to start things off. We're going to head Kevin Jones' way now. He's already got a Fiery Impulse in hand, so he'll draw a card.
Oh, he'll be happy to kill that one. I mean, Warden is a great card in this matchup, I think, nonetheless, from Caleb.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to start the game. There's a Flooded Strand from Caleb. He'll fall down to 18. Basic Plains on the way, and I think we'll see a pump here from the Warden.
Get that out of Fiery Impulse range. This play only works when Caleb's on the play. He's going to take it.
In for 3, Jones will fall down to 17. That thing is at level 1 right now.
The price you pay for playing Mystic Monastery turn 1.
Well, you want that mana fixing, but it does come at a cost. Looks like Jace may have been the draw here for Kevin.
Yeah, and that's new. You know, Jeskai Aggro never had that in the previous season. So I think even now it lets Jeskai do more of a control imitation, I think, than we'd normally see from Kevin. You see in his hand, he does have a copy of Roast. Once again, we're at that dilemma as to what Kevin wants to do with his Roasts. He'd love to get Jace down this turn, but not killing Warden is a price of life points.
Now, after sideboard, Kevin's going to have access to 4 copies of Roast, which is really nice. 2 in the main, 2 in the board. He, of course, predicting that Abzan was going to be pretty popular this weekend, which makes a lot of sense because Abzan is one of the best, if not the best deck in the format. So having 4 Roast throughout your 75, I think, is a very wise decision. That said, you have to choose how to use these Roast in this matchup. You kill a Warden, that means you're a little bit softer to a Rhino or an Anafenza. Land number 3 here from Caleb. That'll be a Flooded Strand.
Now see just how good the curve out is from Caleb. If Caleb can just continue letting the hits come, Anafenza, Rhino, it's going to be hard-pressed for Kevin to win.
This is going to be an attack for 3 yet again. Jones is going to fall down to 14. Scherer will sacrifice this Flooded Strand. He's down to 17. Sunken Hollow, the weapon of choice. He's got access to all 3 colors of mana now. And does he have an answer to Jace? Is he even worried about Jace? Wow, he's gone to Pitiless Horde, and he's hard casting one.
All right, shots fired. This is his plan.
Yeah.
If Jeskai aggro might think it's the aggro deck, well, Caleb has a different assessment of the matchup.
He says, I'm going to aggro you back, and I'm on the play as well, so I'm going to try to run you down.
That's going to be difficult. So if you look at Kevin's side, he has a lot of really strong plays available here. He can go Seeker plus Fiery Impulse. Now, Impulse is slow. You know, it's not spell masteried yet, but if Jace loots, perhaps he could help it along the way there.
Here's an activation of Jace. Kevin will draw and discard. Valor Stance in hand, by the way. Gideon the draw.
If Kevin draws an untapped red source, he could discard an instant and just kill both creatures on the spot.
Yep. Looks like he might be considering discarding Treasure Cruise.
Yeah, he wants to get his spell mastery count up. Treasure Cruise is a really great card, but what he can do is he can discard it, and then several turns down the road, he can flash it back with Jace once things are more under control. If Caleb is going to play Pitiless Horde, then Treasure Cruise looks worse. You don't have time.
A difficult decision on what to discard here. If you're Kevin Jones, he's got a lot of different ways that this hand can go. I think we're going to see him take a moment here to really figure out what to discard in this, because whatever he discards kind of opens up an avenue for where this game is going to go. You get this wrong, it's bad news.
Yeah, I mean, there's even an argument for discarding Gideon. Yeah, I think he picked the right card here. I like this. You know, we'll get that later once we're not dead.
Yeah. Because right now he's on the back foot. He's got to play some defense. Looks like he's going to go towards Roast.
Love the play. Roast straight away on Pitiless Horde.
See what the follow-up is here. He's got Canopy Vista and Windswept Heath.
His lands are awkward.
Yep.
So if he fetches for a basic, the Vista would come into play untapped. But now he's going to play Vista tapped, and he'll still be on single red. Now, I don't think he needs double red since he's played Roast.
Though he may have given away a little bit of information just on how long it took him to sequence that turn. Caleb does have a copy of Duress in hand. Scherer going to start by attacking here for 3 with the Warden. Jones is going to fall down to 11.
But yeah, Jones is spell masteried now. So he does... I mean, where the wins come from Jones is when he gets to start, you know, removing creatures for 1 mana instead of 2 or 3. That's where he wants to be.
There's Murderous Cut. Jace going to bite the dust. And Caleb just going to pass the turn back. Note that this Flooded Strand cannot search up another black source of mana here for Caleb. Just 1 Sunken Hollow.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense now that you say it.
Because there's a possibility if he had a second Sunken Hollow, he could say, search that up, duress you, Murderous Cut your creature, pass the turn back, but he can only play one black spell. Abzan Aggro's got pretty good mana, but it doesn't have, great free roll mana like maybe a modern deck would.
Well, Jeskai's being caught by some mana too. Kevin drew Mantis Rider this turn. If he could fetch for a red source, he could Wild Slash and Mantis Rider. It would be a great sequence, but he only has one basic in play is the problem, so it would come into play tapped.
The Windswept Teeth on Kevin's side can find a copy of Cinderglade, which is the red source of mana that he's looking for, but as you mentioned...
next turn.
Yeah, for next turn, not this turn. Caleb going to sacrifice this Flooded Strand. He'll get himself a Canopy Vista, which does enter the battlefield untapped. And perhaps he's looking to activate the Warden and bring it to level 2.
Some lifelink and trample for Warden. If it gets all the way up to an 8/8, well, I guess Kevin would still have answers. He does have Valor Stance in hand.
Yep.
But he'd like to save that for the Siege Rhinos.
Here's Duress.
Well, Kevin has Stance and Fiery Impulse and Gideon all available. So the Duress is going to be great. I imagine he'll fire off the Impulse just to make sure he gets rid of Warden.
Yeah, the danger here, quite clearly, is Dromoka's Command. You're terrified of that card in this spot. You want to Fiery Impulse. He can fight your creature in response and grow his thing. There's a lot of things that can go wrong here. Or Abzan Charm can save his creature. So actually, Abzan Charm can't. He only got one black source of mana, so that's not in the equation. It was just Dromoka's Command. That wasn't there. Fiery Impulse is going to resolve. Now we take a look at Kevin's hand.
Yeah, and I think Kevin... So what happened there is that if Kevin just wanted the Warden dead, he would have main phased the Fiery Impulse. But he wanted more value out of that. I think... Had this not happened, Kevin wouldn't have cast Fire Impulse this turn. He would have cast it on the following turn so that Seeker got lifelink. As it is, the Duress forced action here and opened him up to Abzan Charm and Dromoka's Command, as you said. But Kevin dodged a bullet. Caleb did not have either.
Gideon is the discard. There's a Canopy Vista. The follow-up is a Morphed Den Protector.
Great play there. Murderous Cut waiting in the graveyard.
Well, assuming he does get to unmegamorph it. He's only got one mana available right now, so if Kevin does draw a removal spell to kill that thing, life is pretty good. Will Kevin search up a land here with the Windswept Heat on the end step? Feels like he could use a Cinderglade.
Absolutely. Now remember, the Murderous Cut can be countered by a Valor Stance, can give a creature indestructible.
But he's just going to wait.
Interesting. All right.
Maybe.
He was, wait, I only have one basic.
Maybe.
Yeah, let's solidify this mana base.
I think now's a good time to get the Cinderglade.
Certainly, untapping there is a reversible decision.
He might be thinking Prairie Stream.
Well, he only has single blue as well as single red, so depending on how he's boarded, it may be more necessary to get Prairie Stream. You're absolutely right.
His mana's really taxing him right now.
Let's get, we got the Den Protector online, though, for when we get those guys.
Yeah. All right, he's...
Well, he doesn't have Roast plus Impulse anymore. He still has Mantis Rider. That wants the red mana. It also wants the blue mana.
Yeah, it wants it all.
So I guess what this does is if he draws a Dispel, assuming he's kept those in, then he can do everything.
Nope. White from Plains,
Oh, gross.
blue
Wait.
from Prairie Stream, red from
no,
Mystic Monastery.
Oh, God, no, he can't.
Yeah, his
All
mana
right.
is pulling him in a lot of
You're
different
right.
directions. Can't wait to see what this draw is going to be. I think a Mystic Monastery.
Okay, well, it's another tap land, but after that, the mana will be okay.
Yeah, then he's all right.
The Tri-lands really do shore up your mana. The danger is that, it's a land that just always is coming into play tapped.
Yeah, they're good and they're bad. As you mentioned, you shore things up, but it always comes into play tapped, and it doesn't work towards Battlelands. So there's some good and some bad there.
He cannot play Mantis Rider and hold up Valor Stance.
Yeah, but I think I'm all right with that.
Well, he knows that means he may lose one of his creatures to a Murderous Cut.
Yeah. There's Mystic Monastery, pass the turn back. Gonna go over Caleb's way. Caleb with the Duress in the hand, he drew a copy of Den Protector again. Now things getting a little more difficult here for Kevin.
This is what Caleb wants to be doing. So now we've switched where Caleb started as the Pitiless Horde aggro deck, and now Caleb's on the control route of things.
Yep. He's trying to stabilize. He'll unmegamorph Den Protector. Maybe.
Wants to do it off the correct lands. Good swap. Good catch there.
+1/+1 counter, of course. Looks like Murderous Cut coming back. Going to cast Murderous Cut now so he doesn't have to worry about Valorous Stance. Down goes the Mantis Rider. Den Protector will come in. Jones is going to fall down to 7. It's a bit of a race here. Big draw here for Kevin Jones. There's a lot of nice ones in his deck right now.
We're playing copies of cards like Sarkhan this weekend. That'd be unbelievable here.
Yep. Gideon would be pretty nice. He's got a couple copies of those, even though he discarded one. There are some goodies available.
Yeah, you go back to that discarded Treasure Cruise, right, and saying, man, it sure would be nice to have one in our hand now.
Mm-hmm. Was it the right discard then? Maybe. Tough to say.
Windswept Heath, the pickup for Kevin this turn.
Kevin not sure if he should attack or not. I mean, he can't block.
I mean, he can. He could just play and make his guy indestructible. It would be a 3/3 and then try to block. That loses to a lot of cards.
Yeah. Here's an attack for 2. Scherer going to fall down to 9. Caleb will untap very quickly. He'll take a draw here. Picks up a copy of Siege Rhino.
Big draw. Big draw for Caleb.
It's always good.
Still trapped on black mana, though. Cannot duress and Siege Rhino this turn.
Here comes Den Protector.
So if he plays Rhino, he would get Valorous Stance, so he actually has to wait a turn on Siege Rhino.
Yep. Dress will take care of Valorous Stance. Kevin is left with just a Windswept Heath. Now here comes a Morph. And again, remember, there are a lot of big draws here for Kevin in combination with Seeker of the Way. Let's see if he can find one of them.
I think Sarkhan is top of the list for him.
I think so, too. He's reaching.
He has something.
Roast is fine. This is going to allow him to attack for 3. He's going to go up to 7. Caleb will fall down to 6.
All right, well, we still have a game.
Yep.
That 7 so important.
Yep.
It's 3 off Den Protector, 3 off the Siege Rhino in Caleb's hand. He can't kill Kevin just yet.
Kevin not going to play Windswept Heath, it appears.
Yeah. I mean, if he cracks the fetch land, he's dead.
Yep. The fetch is not doing a lot for him right now. Playing it or holding it, I don't think it makes much of a difference at this point. Caleb knows about the card. Caleb will draw a card. Ooh, copy of Wingmate Rock is nice. Here comes Den Protector. Jones is going to fall down to 4. And now, wow, he's going to go with Siege Runner. I thought he might go with the Rock that turn.
Yeah, I was surprised. If Kevin can top deck another Roast, he's still got game now.
Yep. Caleb back to 9. Kevin at 1. Take a draw step here. Will Jones. How did he do? He's hiding it from everyone. I think it's just a copy of Hangerback Walker. That's not going to help him, and we're going to get ready here for game number 3 as Caleb Scherer is going to tie things up here against Kevin Jones. Obs on aggro, Jeskai aggro. Get ready for the 3rd and final one.
We saw there Caleb off being on the play. That turn 1 Warden of the First Tree, turn 3 Pitiless Horde. Forced action on Kevin in that it forced Kevin to loot away Treasure Cruise.
Yeah.
You know, Kevin said, man, I am so far behind. This card's great. I like it in the matchup. I can't have it right now. I need to turn on Spell Mastery. So sure, we'll discard it. And then you get to the late game where Kevin not having 2 more cards could have been the difference between winning and losing.
It's really interesting on what he's supposed to discard there because he had the option between that and Gideon. I think he wanted to use Gideon to work himself into the mid and the late game and maybe dominate that way as we saw in the first game. Treasure Cruise may have been more helpful there. I think it's a very difficult decision on what to discard in that situation. Also, his mana did him no favors that game.
No, his lands just kept coming into play tapped each turn.
See the sideboards here available for both players yet again for Caleb Scherer, 4 Pitiless Horde, a Gideon, 2 Duress. We know at least one of those is in there. Actually 2, because we saw 2 that game. 2 Painful Truths, 3 Planner Outbursts, and 3 copies of Self-Inflicted Wound. I was surprised to see the Pitiless Hordes in.
Surprised to see Pitiless Horde in. On the play, I actually like it a lot from Caleb, that ability to go Warden into Pitiless Horde. I wonder if he'll re-sideboard now that he's on the draw. Say that Kevin plays a Mantis Rider first on turn 3, and then Caleb plays a Pitiless Horde. I don't like that matchup as much when the Mantis Rider gets the first swing.
For Kevin Jones, 2 Rash and Claire, 2 Den Protector, 2 Outpost Siege, 3 Disdainful Stroke, a Dispel, Jamoka's Command, 2 Radiant Flames, and 2 copies of Roast. We know the Roast are in because it's Obzon, great against that deck. Unclear about the rest.
You know, we missed this the first time, and Kevin has a Dramoka's Command in his sideboard. It's green. Okay, this is a Jeskai deck. I don't know if he wants to go to Den Protectors and Dramoka's Commands, but you know, if it's freebie to cast, Dramoka's Command's very strong in this matchup.
I mean, can he cast it? Is it easy for him to do all of that stuff? That's tough to say. Again, we just saw mana issues from him, and we saw mana issues from Caleb in the first game. So, again, his deck can allow him to cast it, but is it easy? I don't know.
Yeah, we saw mana issues from Caleb in the second game. That single black source just time-walked him over and over.
Yeah, couldn't play 2 spells in 1 turn. So, again, you see the options there for both players. Now we learn a little bit more about each of them. Caleb Scherer, of course, our Season 4 Invitational champion, the 27-year-old from St. Louis, Missouri. 2 open top 8s with 2 invitational top 8s, both in Season 4, Season 1 of last year, Season 1 of this year, and of course the victory just a week ago in Las Vegas. 255 Open Series points for him, a 63.6 record for 2015. That's his win percentage, and 7-5 lifetime against the field. However, if memory does serve, his first match against Kevin Jones.
Yeah, first match between the two. I mean, Caleb has done a great job against this field in Legacy. Now, when you talk about other formats, it's tougher for him. This is really the first month that Caleb has had success outside of Legacy.
For Kevin, he'll be on the play here. Going to take a look at his opening hand. Looks like he's happy as Caleb will draw up his opening 7 and see if he likes what he sees. Remember, elimination match here. All matches are elimination matches here today as we're in the quarterfinals, and it's underway here for game number 3 of Prairie Stream is where Jones is going to start. For Scherer, he'll start with a wooded foothills, search up a basic forest, and I think we got ourselves a Warden of the First Tree on the way.
Once again, Warden. Now for Kevin, his draw is very Jeskai and very straightforward. I believe he's got a turn 2 Jace, a turn 2 Roast, and a pair of Mantis Riders to go with some lands. That is exactly what I would want in this matchup from him.
Back over to Kevin we'll go. There is a basic mountain. Here is a copy of Roast. Wants to get the Warden out of here right away.
Yeah, picked Roast over Jace on turn 2. That is some respect out of Kevin Jones.
Caleb's going to play a Windswept Heath and simply pass the turn back. Kevin has brought in Den Protector. Is he going to Mantis Rider? His namesake card.
Absolutely. The Kevin Jones Invitational card right there.
It might as well be. If he wins an Invitational, can we just make a Mantis Rider with him on it instead? I know it's not really a token so much, but this is what he does. He loves this card. He's been playing it for over a year. Won the first Standard Open where you could actually play it when we were in Edison last year.
This is going to be Kevin's deck doing exactly what he wants it to do. Let's look at the remaining cards in his hand. He has a 4th land, which is a fetch land that can get him green. He has a Den Protector.
Yep.
He has a Jace, and he has a second Mantis Rider. This is perfect.
And the one thing that we know that Abzan has always struggled with is it struggled in the air.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit soft against flyers. Wingmate Rock does a pretty nice job of stabilizing things if you can rate it, but Caleb is on the draw here. So Caleb is going to try to fight back. He's going to start by doing that with an Anafenza.
It's going to be tough. I mean, there's no BioBlight left in the format. A pair of Mantis Riders is just a ridiculous amount of damage. Add that to the fact that Kevin Jones can threaten Den Protector getting back Roast in case he needs to start racing. This is tough.
Here comes Mantis Rider yet again.
Caleb's at 8.
Yep.
I mean, in case you've forgotten, double Mantis Rider is really strong.
Yes, it's very, very good. This will be an attack for 4. Jones is down to 16. Caleb with a Llanowar Waste. He'll play a copy of Siege Rhino. Going to gain a little bit of life. They're going to go back up to 11. Jones is going to fall down to 13.
I mean, this is Jeskai doing what Jeskai does best, and it's Abzan doing what Abzan does.
Yep.
Here's some big numbers.
Be a good time for Kevin to draw a removal spell, though Fiery Impulse does not line up all that great. There are worse cards, but it does not line up all that great.
Well, Kevin does have a Hangerback Walker that he's picked up. So, not perfect, but it's a lot of chump blocking.
Well, it's only a medium amount of chump blocking because of the Anafenza. So it will get to block once unless Anafenza's gone. But the way that Kevin is playing this game, you attack for 6, put him to 5. You attack for 6 again, that's -1. That's obviously a victory. What I think Kevin is going to try to do here is just try to chump block out, at least to the best of his ability.
So Jace, Hangerback, go.
I would be all right with that.
Yeah, the other line is he can play Den Protector face down and then hope next turn to flip Roast something. But he'd take a lot of damage this one turn if he goes that route.
Yeah, the attack there with Anafenza in a combination with Siege Rhino. Anafenza gives a counter over to the Siege Rhino. That's 9 points of damage. He would fall down to 4.
Well, 4 is not 3.
Well,
and
the fetch land, I think, is going to bring him down to 3. He took 4 and then 5 from a fetch. We have to make sure the life total is correct here. It plays a huge role in what could happen in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's taken 3 off Rhino, 4 off Anafenza, and 1 off a fetch. So Kevin, that fetch should put him down to 12.
Yep. 12 is a world of difference in this situation.
Absolutely. It means he cannot just take the... Were he at 13, he could just take the hit next turn and not be dead to Siege Rhino. That's no longer the case.
Here's Jace. There's Hangerback Walker. Pass the turn back. The plan's a double chump out, I think. Hope that Caleb doesn't draw a removal spell. I believe he's just drawn a copy of Anafenza. He'll show the hand, and that is going to do it. Kevin Jones is going to win this match here over Caleb Scherer, 2-1 for the daddy. He's moving on to the semifinals. Congratulations to him.
Kevin Jones has been on the ropes for 3 matches now and playing the best Magic of his life into the semifinals and maybe even more.